Palantir. If you don't know what Palantir is, it was just one of the best performing stocks in all of 2024. In fact, if we take a look at the chart of a year from today, we were at around $23.40. Fast forward to a couple of days ago at the very peak, we are at $124.62. So that's over 378% in 1 year. You know, I've always read about and heard about all these investments that just skyrocket within just a short amount of time, but I've never actually experienced owning it until Palantir. So what is Palantir? Well, Palantir essentially is an AI company, not just any kind of AI company like ChatGPT. They're a systems integration company. So what they do is they work with existing systems like, let's say, a company, or let's say a military for a nation, right? And what they do is they infuse that company or organization or whatever it is, they infuse it with the super intelligent AI that integrates all their systems into one kind of sentient being. So it gives the whole company its own consciousness. And with that, you're able to predict things. You're able to know exactly what's going to happen with supply chains moving forward. And like what that commercial that I showed you in the beginning that Palantir does for warfare, it can orchestrate 1,000,000 drones like it was in symphony orchestra, and they would know exactly what to do with just one press of one button by the controller. He can control 1,000,000 drones to do an attack. The possibilities for Palantir are just insane. What you can do with this kind of technology is literally you can make everything more efficient, and you can make everything more effective, and you can make your company so intelligent that it improves itself through the AI. But as of today, we are down 12% in 1 day. So this is the first major real pullback that we've had in this stock all year long. And it's mainly because of the news that just came out from Washington. Donald Trump, the new president of the United States, just walked in like a bull in a china shop, wrecking everything in Washington, cutting every kind of spending they possibly can to save as much money as humanly possible. News came out today that Pete Hegseth, Defense Secretary in Donald Trump's administration, has ordered the leaders of the Pentagon to start cutting the defense budget by 8% every year for the next 5 years, totaling 40% at the end of it. And being that the U.S. military is one of the biggest customers of Palantir, this news has seen some sell-offs that's resulted in the lowest drop 15% earlier today. Though nobody really knows what the cuts are going to be. So as a Palantir stockholder, how do I feel about this? First of all, I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. And second of all, yes, I am a stockholder, so I do have a vested interest in Palantir. So what do I think personally? Well, this little dip in price has nothing to do with Palantir's fundamentals. In fact, Palantir has $6 billion in cash that it's sitting on. And that was an increase from $4 billion only a year earlier. So that's $2 billion that they made in revenue that they've kept. And if you take a look at the year, there were barely any pullbacks. There's one right over here, and there's a big one back here. I remember this one. But then it just exploded upwards right from there. Boom. Think about it. If you wanted to downsize your military, but still you wanted to be dominant in the battlefield every single time, like the USA does, wouldn't you want to invest in something that's more intelligent rather than something more conventional like everybody else does? So in my opinion, if I was in the Pentagon, I'd be putting more money into Palantir and cutting the budgets from the older, more conventional stuff. That way you run the military leaner, but more effective and more deadly. But that's just my opinion. Who knows what the folks in Pentagon are thinking? And of course, on the eve of this historic 15% crash, Palantir's CEO Alex Karp appeared on TV CNBC interview yesterday. Let's hear what he has to say about Donald Trump, Doge, and all the budget cuts.
Because we've been talking about Ukraine all morning, and you've been very involved in that battle. I want to show you this real quick if I could. I don't know if we even have time. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was just speaking literally moments ago, after a 4.5-hour meeting with Russian officials in Saudi Arabia to reset relations with Moscow. And I would get to your thoughts on it if we could.
The goal of today's meeting was to follow up on the phone call the president had a week ago and begin to establish those lines of communication. The work remains. Today is the first step of a long and difficult journey, but an important one. And President Trump is committed to bringing an end to this conflict.
We are trying to bring an end to the conflict. Apparently, we're also asking for something on the order of $500 billion in terms of access to minerals and other things for Ukraine. Is that a fair deal?
Okay, look, I don't know anything about the deal and the intricacies of it. What I would say is, first of all, you put up people on the screen who are very talented. So if I look at this from an entrepreneurial perspective, the first thing I'm looking at is, okay, those three people are very talented. The second thing, I'll tell you something I think Trump does very, very well. He says, I'm not going to accept a paradigm that essentially leads to a stupid conclusion. And he's like, okay, great. I'm going to give you a new paradigm. You don't like my paradigm? Give me another one. And I think honestly, I think he's quite brilliant at this. So what I see is he's like, I'm not accepting a paradigm where America just keeps financing things. There's no real discussion. I'm sending three of the most talented people there. Let's figure it out. And again, what I would say to people who are trying to figure out how to make themselves, how to be builders is do not accept a paradigm that is stupid, no matter who tells you that you should have it.
Okay, let me ask you a different question about paradigm shifting. So,
well, seeing what Alex had to say about Donald Trump seems pretty positive. And also, I do like how this guy talks. This guy knows what he's doing. And if you look at all his previous interviews, I definitely encourage you to take a look at these previous interviews because this guy's got a character. And the way he thinks, it's really solid. And he knows exactly where he's coming from. And he's not backing down because he comes from a place of strength and knowledge and confidence. I don't know. He's just giving me more confidence.
One of the things that's going on right now, Elon Musk working with the Doge team in Washington to try to get at some of the misspending that's been going on over the years.
Fraud, waste, and abuse.
And I think there's a lot of people who are super supportive of that. At the same time, you're hearing about resignations and all sorts of other things of folks who are questioning the access that they're getting to data. You are somebody who lives within data. You care about safety and security of data. Do you think we should have those concerns? And is there a way to do whatever's being done right now so that you can take the country and those who are questioning all of this with you,
well,
if you will?
Okay, so that question was a little bit loaded. He knows that Alex is an intelligent guy. So he can't just say, do you think Elon Musk is going to share our social security information? Because that's a bit ridiculous. He knows that's a ridiculous question, so he kind of frames it in a way, that way, however he did, which is kind of lame in my opinion.
Now, look, what I don't like about what's going on is I just view this as, well, let's watch the Democratic Party commit suicide. And like, I've been a Democrat most of my life. I kind of view myself as outside it, but I don't like watching the Democrats just commit suicide. And what I see is most of the country doesn't really, at this point, given the fraud, waste, and abuse we know is there, 90% of the country is like, get rid of that fraud, waste, and abuse. And I just view this as yet another example of the progressive left boxing themselves into a suicide dance.
Oh my gosh. Suicide dance. That definitely makes sense. Yeah, how could you possibly not agree with taking a look at where your money's going? Maybe you don't pay taxes, you don't really care, you got no skin in the game. But if you did pay taxes, why wouldn't you want to know where your money is going? And if it's going to places that are something that you don't really agree with or somewhere that's kind of useless and wasteful, would you continue to support it. So those are the kind of questions that you need to ask yourself if you don't really agree with that. Obviously, I do want to know myself where my money's going.
Now, if you what the progressive left should be doing is saying, okay, Elon, you're clearly the most qualified person in the world to do something like this. We want to dialogue with you about how you're doing and what are you doing. I don't believe that's actually what happened. And again, I like Elon. I know I think he's obviously the most important builder in the world. And I just think, if you want to say my former side, I don't believe that they're actually engaging. I think it's like another dance where I'm supposed to say, of course, like whatever. It's like there's this one issue where I might, and then you get boxed into you cannot solve the problem. And then I would say, what is the biggest problem in this society? Biggest problem in this society, from my perspective, is legitimacy of our institutions. Why aren't they legitimate? They're not legitimate because, okay, do any of you really believe that 99% of your taxpayer dollars are being spent? But last and not least, and probably arguably most importantly, there's two revolutions happening. One is transparency and one is AI. Okay, so why is it that we do not know where every penny of our money goes? Like, how do you explain that to people? And by the way, slightly more technically, what large language models do is they mean you can go into the contracts and see exactly what happened. So in the past, we couldn't do this. Now we can. The right response is, we want this to happen. We want to happen. We want to be involved in the dialogue. The real response is, it feels like the people criticizing Elon don't want it to happen. And this is going to destroy those people.
Well, that guy just exudes confidence. That guy is a visionary. He's just like Elon. He reminds me just like Elon. He reminds me of Donald Trump, too, that he knows where he's coming from. He knows his value, and he's not backing down from anyone. So in my opinion, I am not going to sell my stocks. He just gives me more confidence. I think the U.S. military, if they're smart, would be investing more in Palantir just because it would make everything more cost effective. If your goal is to spend less money, spending more money on AI that can synergize the whole system into one sentient being that functions really well together harmoniously, that would be the better spend on the money, if you ask me. If you ask me, I'd spend the money on the AI rather than more rifles. If you ask me, I'd spend the money on the AI rather than transgender surgeries for transgender people in the military. But that's just my opinion. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to sell my stock. Let me know if you're going to sell. Or what do you think? Is this the end for Palantir, or is this just the beginning? That's how I feel. Peace.